all the research is clear. Intrinsic motivation is always far more powerful than extrinsic. That's why kids love to learn until they start going to school. And now you're learning not because for the sake of learning, but because you're getting grades, or you don't want to be punished, or you want to earn your parents or the teachers' admiration, respect, or love, or whatever.
Hello, and welcome to Awake at the Wheel. So as 2023 comes to a close, it's natural for us to think about what we hope for in 2024. With that often comes New Year's resolutions. But today we're going to discuss whether or not New Year's resolutions are a great idea, whether they stick, or if there's a better way to do it. We often hear the phrase, new year, new me, and the new year is certainly a great time to punctuate the end of one period of time and starting another. And, what better time to focus on self-growth? But oftentimes we do find, and there's stats that support the fact that New Year's resolutions last, I think, something like 3 weeks into the year, especially when it comes to fitness goals. So certainly goals are a great thing, but perhaps there's a better way to do it.
Well, yeah. So every year, I used to be asked on the TV or radio, what is your advice for New Year's resolutions? And I'd always say the same thing: don't do them. That was it. Okay, that was a short interview. Okay, because they are designed to fail in many different ways. At least the way that people do it. So you and I will talk about the right ways to, let's say, set goals as opposed to resolutions.
Yeah, so I would say, and I often talk about this topic because I think that it is, no pun intended, at the core of everything we do, but we need to evaluate our core values when it comes to setting goals. I think that all too often, perhaps people are arbitrary, or they think that something magical is going to happen because the calendar turned over and they're suddenly going to be motivated. But one of the most important things to identify first is, what are my core values, and perhaps what is something that I'm doing in my daily life that does not honor those? And then how can we turn that into a goal or a meaningful change that we actually want to make?
Right, and that's in my upcoming book. That's the very first point of making sure that these goals align with your values. Number one. Number two, making sure that it's something that's fulfilling, whether it's in the now or long term. Because if you're trying to, let's say, cut down on drinking or unhealthy eating or exercise, whatever, it doesn't feel fulfilling in the moment. I get it. Right. But if we look at the long-term goal, long-term aim of, let's say, I want a more fulfilling life. Let's say if I'm taking care of my health now, well, when I get a bit older, then it'll be easier to, let's say you like to travel. Well, it'll be easier to be able to go on those excursions and so on when you're in better shape. And you're not going to magically get in better shape in your 60s or 70s or something. You start doing it at whatever age now. So you find something, a hook, something where you can say, this is why it's important to me. And this is why New Year's resolutions are so, let's say, designed to fail, which is you're not doing it for yourself. I mean, in theory, you are. But for the most part, you're doing it because someone else has determined that this is the thing that you're supposed to do, or you're doing it so that you can tell your friends or whatever else like that. No. Choose. And by the way, my first thing is I tell people, instead of New Year's, okay, the worst time to do it, you're dealing with all the stress and the hangovers and the family dynamics or whatever that you had. Okay, that's not the best mindset. And I know what people say. Okay, well, turn over a new leaf, whatever. Well, in theory, it sounds good. But if you want to hit the gym, let's say, depending where you live, okay, if you're up here in Canada, you want to hit the gym in January, it's not a pleasant walk or drive or whatever to that gym. I tell people the better time would be spring. Symbolically, it's life. We're coming out from the ugly season, and it's a rebirth and everything like that. So I say, if you need to, choose a date. But ideally, as I said a few minutes ago, instead of doing a resolution, how about just say it's not some grand thing. I just will, through almost every day if I can, try to. You don't have to find a new goal every day, but I'm saying just remind yourself, here's a goal I set, a few months ago or a few years ago, or whatever. And how am I doing with that? Am I still trying to be healthy? Am I still trying to read more books here? Am I trying to cut down on my social media use or something like that, right? It's a day-to-day ambition rather than some grand resolution.
Absolutely. And yeah, as far as when to set a goal or when to make a change, I often recommend one's birthday as well, because it is of personal significance, and a good time to reflect on the previous year, if a year is, a time frame that's useful and meaningful for people.
Right. And if you think about like years, there's calendar years, there's fiscal years, whatever else. It's arbitrary. January 1st, it's arbitrary. There's nothing magical in reality about that particular date. It's just that we've decided to ascribe value to it. So, as you say, whether it's your birthday or something else, find some other time. Again, that's why I like just this ongoing thing where it's not a particular day, but if you need to start, fine. But I just think that any time, instead of framing it as I need to start on this day, it's more about what can I do that, again, will enhance my sense of fulfillment. And if I start on a Wednesday, that has no particular date, but if I do it that day, I know afterward, I'll say, hey, I did it. I didn't have to. It's arbitrary. It was random, but I chose that on this particular day, I'm going to go to bed at a reasonable hour rather than scrolling for the next 3 hours. I did it. Hey, great. I felt fulfilled by doing that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So a framework that we often use in therapy, which many may have heard of, are SMART goals. So SMART standing for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant or realistic, and time related. So this is a really good structure that one can use because it helps you to recognize, well, is this goal actually something that I can do and follow through on, or is my head in the clouds with it? So looking at, specific, that means like, not, well, I want to be happier or I want to be healthier. Narrow it down a little bit more. Well, what exactly does that mean? Well, I want to be less stressed. That's still a little bit too broad. Healthier could be I want to lose 5 pounds, or I want to have more energy when I wake up in the morning. So again, something that you can really zero in on so that it's not so broad that it's not achievable. So the measurable part, what that talks about is, is there a way that you're going to be able to tell if you've reached that goal? So the easy one here is weight. It's measurable because I want to lose 5 pounds. Did I lose 5 pounds? Yes, then I've met my goal. As far as the achievable part with the letter A, so achievable, is this doable, or is losing 5 pounds completely outside of the realm of possibility because of my lifestyle or health conditions or whatever the case may be? So looking at that really closely. In terms of, wait, what letter am I on? I said SMA, so R, so relevant or realistic. That ties into whether it's achievable, I think, in many ways, because if it's not realistic, you're probably not going to be able to achieve it. And in terms of relevance, is it something that's actually important to me? Like we were just talking about, is it relevant to my life? Is it relevant to the lifestyle that I'm looking to achieve? And then the last one is T, which is time measured. So putting a time frame around it, because if we're, too open-ended about it, it's probably not going to happen.
Right. And, everything you described, those are all the steps in my book as well. And so I'm just going to add a few more things here. I'm trying to think of what drinking word game that's not going to make me do what happened in the previous episode, drinking every 5 seconds. I was going to say goal, but no, that'll be all the time. So
that's too much, yeah.
That's too much. I'm going to go with pragmatism or pragmatic or practical, any of those words.
Yep.
So, because what you were talking about, all of those, that it does boil down to, being practical, which is why, again, a New Year's resolution is not usually that practical. Okay. Even I'm going to lose a lot of weight. Well, let's be pragmatic about it. Okay, what's that going to look like? How are you going to achieve it? How are you going to know if you've earned success or achieved success in that, and so on? And now when you talk about specificity, one of the things is about time limits and specificity. If someone says, I want to lose, let's say, 30 pounds by the end of the year. Well, again, it's a nice goal, but when it's too vague. I mean, yeah, it's a specific target, but if you're like most people, okay, well, now I'm 1 week away from the end of the year and I haven't lost anything, so I'm going to just cram it in. Because so many people, we do this. We learn with school, with work, or what have you. A lot of people like to just, without that deadline, we don't feel motivated to do it. So I say, have a bunch of intermediary goals. So it's not 30 pounds by the end of the year. If it is 30 pounds, I say, fine. At the end, I'd like to have 30 pounds, but I'd like to start with, like 1 pound in the next 2 weeks or 1 week, whatever the case may be, right? And again, back to pragmatism, if you say, okay, I'm going to lose 1 pound per week, and and maybe it works First of all, 1 pound. I mean, that's water, whatever. But okay, but
Yeah.
as an example, right?
Just as an easy example. Yeah.
We're gonna stick with the weight loss, which is the same thing, by the way, that I chose with my my book as well. Weight loss is always the easiest one. So let's just say it's 1 pound per week, and you do it for, let's say, 5 weeks straight. Well, or 10 weeks straight. Great. But the reality is, we know that that the weight starts changing, coming off differently. Let's say you're building muscle, so now you're actually gaining weight and so on. Right?
Yep.
You need to be flexible. You need to be adaptable or adaptive, and recognize that things might change, circumstances might change, or whether it's diet. Let's say someone they're trying to stick to a strict diet. Now they're at a job though where they have to go out every day. There's meetings, there's whatever, and if you don't go out, you're going to lose this promotion that you're aiming for. You've got to be flexible enough to go, whoa, that's not working out. I need to change things up a little bit. Find another way. Right? The rigidity is going to prevent you from being able to achieve your goal. Okay. Rigidity is not pragmatic at all. It's the opposite. It's the antithesis almost, not by definition, but in reality. And back to these intermediary goals. So you aim for a certain amount of weight, for example, for 1 month. It can be a week, it can be a month, 3 months, 6 months, and then you check and see how you're doing. And if you realize, oh, okay, I'm 3 months in, I'm definitely not going to lose those 30 pounds. Once again, be flexible and say, what do I need to change? Maybe you said earlier, maybe I need to be more realistic. Maybe these 30 pounds, it's not going to happen. Or once again, find a different way to do it. But if you just set this vague goal, or this even a specific goal way too far in the future, there are so many ways that you're going to, that you're going to miss realizing, whoops, I'm doing it the wrong way. Okay, there's so many opportunities, I should say, to check and see whether you're doing it right. So having those built-in, mini goals or mini targets along the way allows you to be able to analyze, assess, and evaluate and see whether, I'm doing it the right way, right? And by the way, there's so many different ways to either lose weight or this or that, right? So again, checking in every once in a while to see, is this practical and pragmatic and effective for me?
Absolutely. And exactly what you described there is the biggest culprit for why New Year's resolutions don't work and don't stick. And to add to that, I think that oftentimes when people do set the bar too unrealistically high or too broadly, they kind of feel like crap when they don't achieve it. And that then just further discourages them from either working on it or setting a different goal or adjusting the goal. So that's why it's so incredibly important to be kind to yourself, but also be realistic about what goals you're actually setting. And, self-improvement is such a wonderful thing, but you really have to evaluate what you can actually do.
Right. And that's one of the other steps, which is have successes and partial successes. So, and that's why, because if you wait for the whole year to see whether you succeed or not, that's ridiculous. But if you go, okay, I'm going to, instead of weight, I'm going to use smoking now, just to make it a bit easier, because we
Sure.
can count this, right? If someone says, I smoke 2 packs a day and I want to be not smoking by the end of the year, fine. Okay, then let's work backwards and say, what is that going to look like? So for the first week, what are you going to do? Are you going to cut out 1 cigarette a day, or you go down 2, 3, 5, whatever the case may be? So if someone says, for example, I want to smoke 5 fewer, let's say 10 fewer cigarettes within the month. All right, actually, I'm going to say a week. Within the week, if you say I'm going to smoke 5 fewer cigarettes, I smoke 2 packs, so let's say 40 a day, 50 a day. I'm going to cut down 10%. I'm going to go 5 fewer by in this first week. Well, 5 fewer is your goal for that week. If you do 3, that's a partial success. If you do 2, it's okay, right? And have it specifically, like saying, okay, and if I even cut down just 1, that is a partial success, right? Most people go, I didn't get the 5, I'm a failure. Reframe it to, well, 1 fewer than last week is better than last week. Right? It's a start. And the only way you fail on that one is if you coast on that, go, well, okay, 1 is good enough. No, okay, 1 is not good enough. It's the bare minimum. And you're going to build on that, because the whole idea is, and what people really need to understand, everyone knows this, but they don't really double down on it, which is we build on our successes. Most people, they're programmed, they look for the failure. No, get a success. You didn't cure cancer. You didn't split the atom if you smoked 1 less cigarette this week than you did the previous week. So let's not, give you a parade right now, but at least say it was a start. And if I can do that, I can build on that. It's all about framing and reframing. So, so much of what we do is about that.
Yeah, yeah. And to that point of framing, so a real life example. So I've spent the last year and a bit with some pretty significant fitness goals. So I had a history of not really working out, not practicing what I preach. I talk to clients all day long about how important exercise is for the brain, and yet I wasn't doing it. So enough was enough. And I really got down to it, got a personal trainer and worked with her for 6 months. It was amazing. So in working with this individual, of course, most of the people she's working with have fitness goals. So I really love the way that she framed things at the new year last year, was rather than setting a goal of, well, I want to look a certain way or I want to be a certain weight, she said, pick a word that is going to guide all of your fitness goals.
Hmm.
So the word that I chose was courage. So if I, because my schedule is Monday, Wednesday, Friday. If a Monday night rolls around, I just don't want to go. I need to reframe it with the word courage of I'm going to muster up the courage to go and do what I want to do so I can achieve my goals. So I thought that that was really a cool way of reframing it with something really simple like one word.
And I love that because, so much of what I do, I know you do as well, is we're trying to find ways to activate that, whatever it is that gets you to do what you want to do. There's all these tips, there's books, there's all these things, and sometimes they're too complex or too difficult. Something simple, whatever it is, whatever resonates. That's what we're aiming for. So I do like that. And if someone goes, courage, really? Courage because you're going to a gym on a Monday? Well,
yeah, it sucks.
exactly. And look, words, yes, words have meaning. You and I have even done a podcast about that.
Yes.
They have definitions, but there's also personal meaning. So if you ascribe a certain meaning or whatever to a particular word, if that's what it takes, great. I love that. It's whatever it does, whatever it takes, to get you going. That's what we're aiming for. And I'm going to add a few more things.
Yeah.
Again, this is what we're doing. So the whole idea, and everyone's different, by the way. Actually, this is one of my later things in my book, but I'll say it right now. All right. Just because if someone says, wow, she said courage, so I'm going to use the word courage too. Well, if it doesn't resonate with you, then it's not going to work, right? Find whether it's the word, whether it's the system that you do, right? It's different for everybody. So do some research, look around, check it out and everything like that, and find what works for you and recognize that, that some things, it might work for 99 out of 100 people. You might be the one person that doesn't work for. Okay, find something else. Don't say, well, I'm the loser, I'm the failure. No, that particular thing didn't work. Okay. And so what I was going to say was one of the most important things that it's so 50-50 is, do you work on a system of punishment or reward? Okay. Everybody's different. For me, rewards don't work because I know myself, I'm going to reward myself anyway. Okay. It doesn't work. I like the punishment. That's me personally. It's punishment. So years and years ago, when I was in university, I decided to quit smoking. So, and for someone who was working full time and going to school full time and trying to raise a family and everything like that, money was very tight. So I put a bounty on my head. I told everybody, I said, if you see me smoking, if I smell like smoke, legitimately, okay, if I'm with someone who's smoking, then I smell like, no, but if you actually catch me smoking, I said, spread the word, $50. I said, I will give $50.
That's amazing.
That's what I did, because I'm sorry, there's no cigarette that's worth $50 for me. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's what worked, because otherwise I know I go, oh, well, whatever, I'll have one smoke after class. Nope. Because I knew that I told people, rat me out. I want you to. Okay. So that I put the bounty on me. So punishment works for me. If other people have rewards, fine. And once again, same with the intermediary targets and the partial successes. If you say, well, at the end of the year, I will reward myself. No, you might have a grand reward at the end of the year, maybe a vacation, whatever, if you can afford it. Okay. But set the rewards or the punishments in those early stages as well, for the week, the month, whatever. You want to build on that. And it doesn't have to be grand, make it small, something like that. And if you say, I'm going to smoke, again, 5 fewer cigarettes by the end of the week, and if I do 5, this is what I receive. Okay. Well, if you do 3, receive something. If you do 1, receive something. It might be small, but again, you always want to build on earlier successes.
And I think this ties into some psychology 101 concepts here, which you can elaborate a bit on because I'm sure you lecture on this a lot, but developing one sense of intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. So essentially what that means is being self-motivated within rather than being motivated from things that are external to you, like compliments or could be a vacation even, but the intrinsic motivation is more about, I'm doing this for me because I know it's going to improve who I am. I'm going to be healthier, happier, whatever the case may be. So really focusing on developing that internal dialogue to motivate oneself.
Right. And yes, all the research is clear. Intrinsic motivation is always far more powerful than extrinsic. That's why kids love to learn until they start going to school. And now you're learning not because for the sake of learning, but because you're getting grades, or you don't want to be punished, or you want to earn your parents or the teacher's admiration, respect, or love, or whatever. So you're absolutely right. So what I tell people is some people naturally have that intrinsic motivation. That's great. And so many people don't. So what do we do about that? Well, I say if you start off with some type of extrinsic, let's say carrot or stick, right? That's what gets you started. I say, but that's just to initiate the change. Try your damnedest. Remind yourself each time. I'm trying to build up this intrinsic motivation. And if you do it a few times, you go, okay, well, hey, yeah, you know what? I woke up this morning, and let's say whether it's cutting down drinking or whatever else like that, I feel a little bit better. Okay. Well, I like that. I like how that feels. So, or I went to bed on time and everything like that. That's an intrinsic motivator because internally it feels good. And I like what it says about myself and everything. So start with the extrinsic if that's what it takes. Go for the intrinsic. And I remember one of my most common examples is if someone, and some people will not like it, but because I'm very practical and pragmatic, I say it seems to work, so let's do it. Which is, let's say someone breaks up with you, right? And that's just, I'll just say that. Okay, so let's say a woman breaks up with this guy. He's feeling really bad and everything like that. I say, well, you know what? Let's say, for example, go to the gym. Get in your shape. You're not in the greatest shape. Use the fact that she broke up with you to motivate you. Now, let's be clear on this. If you lose 20 pounds, you get ripped, you're feeling good, you get your life together and everything like that. Well, she might already have decided, no, I don't want anything to do with you. She might have moved on. She might be with somebody, whatever else like that. I say, so you're not doing it with the exclusive hope that you're going to get her back. Okay, that's not it. You're saying, wouldn't it be nice if, or even if she's with somebody, I want to walk by her, okay, and have her say, damn, I wish I hadn't given that up, whatever the case may be. I say, if that image, that thought, just like you're saying courage, that word, okay, if that thing motivates you, great. Once again, it would be nice if it's intrinsic, but if you don't have that natural fire, find something else. But again, you have to commit to saying eventually it will be an intrinsic thing. Once I start going to the gym and realizing I've got a routine, or I'm liking how I feel, or whatever the case may be. So whatever it takes externally to get you started. Okay. And by the way, I don't know if we talked about the power of spite. Have we done that before? We have. Okay. Yeah. So just as a callback, I always tell people, okay, if you live purely by spite, if you go, oh, I want to show her, and you live for the rest of your life just because you want to make sure that she knows that she lost the best person, whatever else like that, you're going to die prematurely. You're going to be bitter and miserable. If, however, you use that just as a spark to get you going, go, oh, I'll show her, rather than, oh my God, she broke up with me. I'm a loser. I'm never going to find somebody else. All right. It's far better to go that route, the power of spite. So start with that and then commit to saying, but eventually I'm going to make it as for me. It's fulfilling. It's living in line with my values.
Yeah, absolutely. So essentially, it's important to recognize that, yeah, we all need some external motivation, but ultimately the majority of our motivation needs to come from inside, because if we're solely relying on these external forces, they're not going to stick and they're only going to be superficial goals.
Exactly. And speaking of external forces, the next, now this again, actually, I'm going to say that I used to say all the time, one of the reasons, I think I said earlier, one of the reasons resolutions fail is that people just seem to have this inherent ability to screw things up. Okay. There's a way that you can do it right, but there are so many more ways that you can do it wrong. So the next step, if you do it right, it will help you. If you do it wrong, you're going to fail miserably, which is eliciting the help of others. Just like with me, I put the word out, put the bounty on my head, and it helped me stop smoking. Right. So for some people, the whole grand proclamation on December 31st, I will lose 50 pounds, or I'm going to stop drinking, or you say it to everybody. Well, that's the wrong way to do it, most likely, because for a lot of people now they're invoking or potentially invoking shame because they know they put out this big thing to everybody. They announced it. And if they're not, even one weekend, they go, oh my God, I don't think I'm going to be able to do it. They psych themselves out and they're carrying that shame. Now, maybe you're excluding yourself from other people. Now you every time you're going to go and see friends, you're wondering, even if nobody says anything, still in the back of your mind, are they going to ask me of how my resolution is? Right? You're causing so much damage to yourself. If you find a couple of people that you trust, that are not going to judge you, they're just going to be there to aid you. Whether it's, hey, I want to go to the gym. Do you want to go to the gym as well? Having a partner, that's good. Or saying to the person, I want you to hold me to account. I have this system of rewards and punishments. Okay. And one of my favorite punishment ones is that you find a group or an organization or something that you despise. And if you don't do what you're supposed to do, if you don't meet the target, you have to donate to them. Okay. Or you have to volunteer for them or something like that. I heard about that many, many years ago. I just love that punishment. Okay. So you have someone, because I know me, sometimes, like, would I really punish myself if it's only up to me? I don't know. Okay. But if I have other people and they hold me to account, right, then it feels like it's more motivating for me. And I've had so many patients who tell me, saying, just putting it out there and telling me that this is what they plan to do. It doesn't have to be a resolution. It's a goal. Okay. It doesn't matter. But, just putting it out there, I hold them to account. That's one of the values that I bring, right? It's just, so having someone that you trust, that's not going to make you feel shame or whatever, who's just going to be there to hold you to account and to distribute the punishment or the reward. I think that can be good as well. So again, it has to be done right. And by the way, and you also have to set rules with them. Okay. Do they come to you and ask, or are you supposed to go to them? Because if they are asking you, now you're feeling they're nagging you. Now it's going to demotivate you. Now you're going to feel, resentment toward them. You don't want that. You have to tell them exactly how the system is going to work.
Yeah. And to that point, something I often recommend to clients and have done myself for my own fitness goals is back to our values. So what is a way, in a kind way, that we can trick ourselves or that we can kind of game those values? So an example that I'll use from myself is, and I recognize that everybody can't access a personal trainer. They can be costly. But for me, the top reason I enlisted this personal trainer is because one of my values is I'm not going to no-show. I'm not going to leave someone hanging. So I know that if I have this appointment every Monday and every Wednesday at 6:30 p.m., I'm going to show up even if I don't feel like it. Same with booking classes. I attend classes at the gym for the same reason, that I'm not the type to no-show. If I have an appointment, I'm gonna do it. So identifying what some of those things are within yourself that are going to help to keep you accountable are also helpful.
Right. So you're using your people pleasing to your benefit. Good.
I know what I am.
Or I would say that's more about I'm joking about the people pleasing. That's a sense of responsibility. That's so important, though, that value. Yes. And again, for other people, they don't care. If they don't care about no showing or whatever else like that, that's the wrong one. Find what works for you. That's excellent. Again, it's in line with your values. Now, again, practical thought. Okay. Whether it's losing weight, whether it's going to the gym, whatever, right? It's being realistic about the setbacks, about the decreases in progress, because here's, again, the weird thing about human psychology. And this is why, for example, many addicts, that if they don't have the right system in place, it's so easy to fall off the wagon. If you have a minor setback, let's say you've made 25 steps towards your goal and you have a minor slip, the people with the unhealthy mindset think you're back to zero. And it's like, well, I can't do it again. That's it. I'm done. Right?
Yeah.
Versus saying, oh, shoot, I had a slip up. What happened? What made me susceptible to that? Whatever. Maybe I've had 3 slip ups. What's going on here? Right? Don't wait till it's too late. You find it. Be honest with yourself. You and I always preach about self-honesty and everything like that. Recognize, what was it? Okay. Was it the friends I'm hanging out with? Was it because I'm devoting too much time to doing something else like that? Whatever the case may be, find out what it was on the practical level, right? And also on the values level. As you say, we have to make sure that what we're doing aligns with our values, because I've said this many, many times, and we talk about all the time. If you live in line with your values, you are going to feel fulfilled. And if you're feeling fulfilled, it doesn't matter what's going on in the rest of the world. You are winning at life. You're succeeding at life. So even if you haven't reached that 30 pounds off goal yet, if you're living and saying, I set this thing, I'm doing it pretty well. I'm changing myself and so on. That's it. You're winning. You are succeeding, even if you haven't reached that goal yet.
And I think, along those same lines, in terms of what types of goals to set, people need to be understanding of the fact that, just because it might seem small or insignificant or not something that your friends or family believe is a big deal, that doesn't matter. If it's something that is going to bring you fulfillment and meaning, and again, self-improvement, then it's worthwhile.
Exactly, 100%. And there was one other part about that I was going to. Oh yeah, different. I think you said it so perfectly. But I'm going to have one more practical point, which is habit stacking. Okay, it's so if you can find a way to attach whatever you're doing to something that you already do. Okay, it's always good if you have a routine or whatever, just work it in, because it's much easier to, right, just to add to something rather than starting from fresh. Okay, with the weight loss, I'm not sure what to do, but okay, whatever it is, and also back to the tips and everything like that. So someone said that, for example, if you want to work out, they say put your gym shoes or whatever by your bed. Okay, so when you see it in the morning, you know that even if you don't put them on right then and there, or you have your clothes laid out or something like that,
Yeah.
right? Even put them on. They say even if you're just putting them on, it increases your chances that you're going to do it. You might not do it. Okay, you might go, oh, I just wasted, again, unhealthy mindset. I just wasted 5 minutes putting, or 30 seconds putting on my clothes. Whoa, and I didn't even go to the gym. Or you say, you know what, it didn't work this time, but if I keep doing it, there's a pretty good chance that it will eventually kick in. Okay, there's a reason I'm doing this, and eventually I'm going to go, oh, this is why. So again, whatever it is. And with the internet, there's so many resources. You will find which works for you, which, once again, back to what I said earlier, I want to be so clear on this. Let's be practical about this. One thing that works for somebody isn't going to work for somebody else. Find what works for you.
Absolutely.
I just want to double down on what you said. And I think it's the most important. Okay. And it's something I said as well, which is, again, people love to, for whatever reason, love to shit on themselves and shit on whatever, if not other people, just because it may not seem like a big deal to anybody else. Who the hell cares? And I'm going to switch this around to really drive home the point. When I deal with people with phobias, I say this all the time, right? If you have a fear of butterflies, okay, and you're able to actually have a butterfly in your hand, or to go to a butterfly exhibit, whatever they call them, garden or something like that, right? Okay, maybe 999 out of 1,000 people will laugh at you and think, really, that's your big achievement, right? You got to touch a butterfly, right? Well, that was your greatest fear at that time. Pick anyone's greatest fear. It doesn't matter. Butterflies are irrelevant. Elevators are irrelevant. Whatever it is. So it's the biggest for you. Figure out what the biggest thing is for the other person, and they're probably not doing it. They're probably not challenging their biggest fear, right? So same thing for this. Turn it around. If your goal is, once again, even if it's going to bed half an hour earlier or scrolling less or whatever else like that, right? Who cares? It doesn't matter what it means to somebody else. Everyone's metrics are different, and as we're
Absolutely,
values are different. Screw what everyone else thinks. It's for yourself, which is why when you're eliciting help, okay, if you say to somebody, I would like to do this, and it's the kind of person who's going to go, really? That's your goal? Like, you're a loser, right? Obviously, it's the wrong person.
That's not the right person. Yeah.
Not the right person, right? So you find the person. And by the way, here's the other thing. When it comes to sticking with resolutions, which we shouldn't be doing, we prefer goals. Okay. When it comes to sticking with goals, and it's funny because, or sad, I've had so many patients who are very critical of themselves. Forget about goals, just in general. They're self-critical. Okay. And some of them are former athletes. And they say, well, my coach was really, really hard on us, and that's what I learned. And I said, okay, well, let's take a look. The coach that berates their players, that humiliates them and everything like that. I said, for the top of the top, okay, it works for them. For the top 0.001% of athletes, whatever, it works for them. Okay. And guess what? If they're that good, they would have got that good anyway. So a coach being an a-hole to them, it worked for them. And if the coach was gentle, whatever, it might have worked as well. Okay. I see. But for everybody else, all it does is crush their spirit. It makes it not fun anymore. They don't want to do it. It demotivates them. Okay. So I say to them, I said, I don't care whatever training you had back then. I said, that critical, kick your ass voice, it does work for a tiny, tiny proportion of people. That's why Dr. Phil, okay, I haven't seen him forever. Okay, I just found him with a few times I watched. I found him to be smug, sanctimonious, insulting, whatever else like that. Okay, now maybe he changed, but when I saw him many years
He
ago,
did change over the years, but that was my initial impression too. So I'm with you.
all right, good. That's what I haven't seen him for that many years. So when I saw that, and yeah, so you'd have people on the show who maybe are that works for them, right? But that works for like 5% of the population, if that, right? For everybody else, compassion, self-compassion. And it doesn't mean, oh yeah, I haven't gone to the gym for the last 6 months. I'm just being me. I love myself. It's not that, right? It's recognizing, oh, geez, yeah, I missed a week or something like that. What's going on? It's not the best. It's not a total failure. I need to, again, it goes back to step one, be practical, find out what went wrong. What else in my life is going on? Why am I losing my motivation and stuff like that? It's judging realistically, but not being judgmental towards yourself.
Yeah. And that ties into what you said before, that real strong degree of self-honesty and really recognizing, okay, oh, I didn't go for 6 months. No, that's not okay, because that doesn't align with my values, doesn't align with my goals. And something else to consider is that, one's ability to delay gratification and set a goal and work to achieve it and actually achieve it, to be able to implement that into one's life is such a strong, important quality. So, it's not just about the immediate weight loss or stopping smoking. It's about developing this into one's character, which is so powerful.
100%. Okay. And then the final thing about that, which is, and it's kind of interesting that, now I'm going to be a hypocrite because I would never think to do this. I think this is insane. Why would anyone torture themselves like this? Now I'm being facetious because it's really smart to do. I don't have the ability. Okay. Cutting out sugar. Right? Yeah. Or sweets or whatever. I know that's not going to be me. Now, could I, if I had to do it, could I? Of course I could, but I choose not. I focus on other areas. But the point is, people say, if you, let's say cut it out for, I forget how long it is, like 3 weeks or whatever. Okay. They say eventually you're just not going to have the taste for it anymore. Yeah. Right. So the thing is, so people think, okay, yeah, sure. Well, I was able to cut out sugar for 3 weeks, but how can I do it forever? If you go to a certain point, and here's one thing, people there's these ridiculous, what do we call it? People who try to guide you or whatever, whether it's a health guru or whatever else, where they put these timelines. If you do it for 36 days, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Or it takes this long to condition or, to change your conditioning. It's not universal. Certain habits, certain changes, proclivities, whatever, it takes different periods of time. So for some people, it might be 3 weeks. For others, it's only a week. For others, it's 6 weeks, whatever the case may be. Okay. To assume that it's a set time limit is silly. Okay. At some point, the change will happen. But here's the thing. People think, okay, so I can cut out sugar for 3 weeks, but I can't do further. Or I can go to the gym for 6 months, but I can't do it any longer. Why not? That's a crazy thing, that people have this limit. They put this self-imposed limit. No, once you've made that change, right, you can sustain it forever, or in theory, or to a certain point, right? And again, I'm a hypocrite because there's certain things that I did where for example, I cut out coffee for a couple of years, many, many years ago, cut it out completely. And I was able to do it. Right. Then I fell back in old habits for whatever reason. OK, so I have cut down significantly. But in theory, I should have been able to not to not drink coffee ever again and still function, whatever else like that. But things happen. I got tired, whatever else like that. I need that caffeine rush. Anyway, so what I'm saying is that for certain things you can maintain. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. But if you're 90% improved, whatever, and you do, there's no reason not to for the rest of your life. And once again, if you have a slip, if you have a setback, it doesn't mean you're back to stage 1 or stage 0. Yeah. It just means you had a tiny bit of a slip. That's all it is.
But I think that's a perfect example of what we were saying before in terms of, does a goal align with values? Now, I'll pick on your coffee example because I know you as a coffee drinker. So I laughed to myself, like, what do you mean you gave up coffee? But I wonder if in situations like that where it doesn't stick, one often has a realization of, well, maybe this isn't terribly important for me to give up or do or whatever. So that could be part of it too.
Yes, one of my values is to be conscious during the day and to be a high-functioning, effective person. So I found that
what a concept.
So, hey, it's rationalization. It's self-serving rationalization. I get it, but that's, anyway. So,
well, I tried giving up sugar and that didn't work either because I'm a baker and I love dessert. I'm like, well, that was a dumbass idea. So I'm with you.
Right. But here's the thing though. But again, being practical, if like with coffee, for example, I drank some crazy amounts. Okay. I would have 6 of these literally in my office. I would
Oh,
work
wow.
from 12 to 12. Like I do like a 12-hour, 14-hour day sometimes in my office and not leave. So I'd have 6 of these full of coffee. Very unhealthy, like literally 6 of these a day.
Yeah.
Okay. So I cut it down to like say 3 or 4. And I did something I said I would never do. And maybe, which I thought it was blasphemy. I mixed my coffee with decaf. So
Oof.
any given thermos, yeah, I know. So any given thermos, it's like 2 to 1. It's 2 to 1 decaf. So two-thirds decaf, 1/3 regular coffee. So instead of
Okay.
having 6 full things, now I'm down to
Sure.
maybe 2 to 3 of, let's say 2 to 3 of these with only 1/3 regular coffee. The rest
Yeah.
of this thing called
Which
decaf.
was more realistic for you.
Well, it's healthier. It's yeah, it's realistic. So I
Yeah.
can keep having the coffee and and because my value, there's something, I just love my coffee. Right. But yes. So anyway, so again, being flexible, modifying it in ways, and some people could say that's cheating. Well, it is cheating, but it's again, much, much better to drink, like 1/4 or 1/5, actually maybe 1/6 of what I used to drink, if not even less.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's not zero, but it's far better than it was before. So,
Right. It's still an improvement. Yeah.
right. And if I found out, if my doctor said to me, by the way, this coffee, it's destroying your one remaining kidney. So, then I'd have to value, I prioritize my well-being, my life, whatever.
Sure.
So then I'd cut it out. But right now, I value being productive and being effective. And without my coffee at this point, I don't see that happening. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, as far as what people can do with all of this, I think that, again, we've covered tons of different strategies and ways to reframe things. I would say the one biggest thing is don't set New Year's resolutions because they don't stick, they don't work for all the reasons that we talked about. Be more realistic, use the SMART goal framework or the 14 steps that Oren laid out. Lots of overlap in the two, but find some structure that's going to work and to help keep you accountable.
Right. Be flexible, be adaptive, be realistic. And on that note, until next time, keep your eyes on the road and your hands upon the wheel.